Hi, in this video, I will explain what is HTML and also how to create a basic HTML page. All right, so before we jump into HTML, I just uh, wanted to. I was thinking that you may need to get familiar with this terminology. So, what are this terminology? For example, what is a web page? We need to understand a web page before we start studying HTML, right? So, a web page is basically a document written in HTML. It's an HTML document that can be viewed in any browsers. So what does HTML page, what does a web page contain? A web page usually contains anything. It can be graphics, can be like video, audio, text, etc. Right? So what then you might ask, what's a website? A website is basically a collection of the web pages. So a lot of web pages are combined and then it creates a website. A website is also referred to as a site. And then now we come to what's a web server. A web server is like a server in the restaurant, right? So a server in the restaurant provides the services for the clients. And the same concept applies here. So a web servers host all the resources. It has all the resources, all the services. And then when the clients request the services, the servers provides for it. So in this case, when it comes to the web page and web servers, the web server contains all the web pages, right? It hosts all the resources, which are the web pages, and whenever the clients ask for these web pages, then the server processes it, analyzes it, and sends the data back to the client. And what's a client? As I said, client can be anyone with a computers or software device that requests these resources from these resources and services, which is hosted by a server, and server responds to these requests. So, but if we actually define in simple terms, I mean, of course there are a lot of complexities and tricks beside how the web pages are transmitted between the servers and the client. But in most simple terms, how does it work is that the client with any computer device usually sends a request to the server receives this request, analyze it, process it, make sure that the client is authorized, and then sends a copy of this web page. Then sends a copy of this web page to the clients, and client then view this page with a browser. This is how the web pages are transmitted between the servers and client. So as I said, a web page, again, in summary, a web page is a document written in HTML. It has a text, graphic, video, audio, and etc. A website is a collection of the web page. A web server provides the services for the clients, and a client is any device that consumes these resources, consumes and receives these web pages or resources from servers. All right, so now let's actually jump to HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and that's used to manage the content of your web page, your website. HTML is mainly used for content management. It is the standard language that's used to create the web pages. What does HTML document contains? It has a lot of like elements. All right. So that's in most simple term, HTML is used to create the web pages. But just want to let you know that most of the website nowadays are created from three front end, of course. The front end, of course, they are created from three languages. It is HTML for the content management, CSS, which stands for cascading style sheet, is for formatting, coloring, and then we have JavaScript. JavaScript is used for dynamic behaviors and for functioning, to have the function, then we use the JavaScript. So a front end, most of the website in the front end, they are using HTML for content management, CSS for styling and formatting, and JavaScript for dynamic behaviors and for functionality. All right, so that's it about the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And this is a simple page, right? This is a simple page, and every one of them has a specific meaning. All right, so first of all, if you start, what is this opening, smaller than and greater than? Here they are referred to as a tag, right? These are tags. In HTML, they are referred to as tag. All right. So they usually has an opening tag like this one, HTML, and it has a closing tag. So let's actually first explain what is this. This one basically means this is a document declaration. It usually declares only once. This is basically mean that this is an HTML document, HTML5. This is an HTML5 because HTML has a different version, 3, 4, 5. So what is this? Then we have the HTML tag. This tag basically is the root element. It contains all the elements on your page, on a web page. It starts from here, which is the root element, and it ends here. You see that? So everything is inside this HTML element. Then we have the head. If you see that the head has an opening tag and it has a closing tag. So what about the head? The head contains meta information or metadata. Metadata is data about data. So what we mean when we say data about data? In simple term, this tag is used to provide information about your page. So if you still don't understand, let me actually show you that. All right, so to create a web page with the HTML, we need to use a text editor, right? We need to use a text editor. So what is a text editor? A text editor is used to create a simple HTML element. All right, simple HTML element. All right, so now what it means here, let's say that, but the good news is that your operating system already has the text editor. If you have Windows, if you're in Windows, it is called, a Notepad, and if you're in a Mac, it's called, text editor, right? Text editor. All right, so and now we need to but I personally use a little bit flavor version of this text editor. It's called Sublime. So this is a paid version. It used to be free, but right now it's paid. As you see, it said unregistered. So but it has a trial version. I think it's for 2 weeks or something. You can use it. So this one is pretty cool. It helps you out. It has a really good attach. All right. So this is a plain text. When you open this up, it says this is a plain text. When into these, click on it, and then you have to select HTML, right? HTML. All right, so let's get it started. The first thing, as I told you, it starts with a doc type. So you see that there is color coding. Color coding meaning that it has some meaning to this document, right? It has some meaning. So what we need to do is, and then we add HTML, right? We need to add HTML. So this tag, as I told you, HTML, so we don't want to have everything because it's kind of overwhelming. I just want to go slow. So HTML, closing, and then opening, then again HTML. So this HTML, as I told you, this is the root element for all the web pages. I'm sorry, for this web pages. Everything comes inside this element. So the first thing that we need to do is, as I said, head. So head contains information. It's called metadata, meaning information about this web page. What I mean here, let's say that what I need to do is I had the title. So when I had the title, I can say that quote for live.usa, right? So now I write my code. This is an HTML document. This is it has the HTML root element, everything comes inside this. And now we are here. As I told you, this one contains the information about your web page. So what I mean, when I type my text, what I need to do, I need to go to the file, and then I need to save this. All right. So I need to save this. I need to save whatever name you can have here, right? So I will call it info, let's say info.html, right? And it's located on the desktop. So let me actually add that to download, right? So I'm going to add that to download, and then I'm going to save it, right? So I'm gonna save it. Then I need to go and find my document. I go to the download, and now what was the name? The name was info dot. It was info dot. So why I don't see? Maybe it was all the way into the end. And where is the file? All right, so let me actually do. I don't know why. It's probably it's me that I don't see that here. Maybe it's somewhere here. Okay, let me actually search for it. It was info, right? So let's see for the info. Info dot html. All right, so it's right here, right? So what we need to do, we need to right click on it and open, and now we need to open with a Google Chrome. All right, so when we open it, if you see, this is the title, right, that I put over here. Well, what did I put? I say that not over here. It was in the subline, right? It was in the subline. What did I put here? I said code for life. Now we saw that in the browser, it was what? It was code for life. This is what I say, that the heading provides the information about your web page. For example, this one. All right, so let's move on to the next one. See what we got over here. And then, so okay, so this was about the then we got the body. So what is body? As you see, that body has an opening tag, and also it has a closing tag. So what is this? A body is basically a container for all the visible elements. Everything that you see on your page comes inside this body tag. I just want to point it out that, as I said, that these are referred to as tag, right? Tag. Only this is called opening tag, this is called closing tag, and this is called content, right? Only the content is visible on the browser. Remember, only the content is visible on the browser, then everything is not visible. All right, so the next thing what we need to do is we need to add our element, right? We need to add our text. All right, so sorry, we need to add our body, right? So we need to add our body. Now inside body, as I told you, everything that you want to put over here is going to be visible. For example, if you want to add a paragraph, it's defined with a P, right? It's defined with a P. For example, I can say this is a paragraph, right? This is a paragraph. Then in that case, I'm going to save that again, Control S or Command S on the Mac, and then go back to your browsers, right? So you go back to your browsers, and what I need to do is just need to refresh it, and then it say that this is a paragraph. As I told you, whatever you put in on your and be inside this body, it's going to be visible. All right, so this was about the paragraph. And now how we can add the title or subtitles, headings. So how we can add a heading, we can do that by H1. So there are 6 of these, okay? H1 through H6, basically they do the same thing. H1 is the most important, and H6 is the least important, okay? The least important is 6. They have 6 of them, 1 through 6, okay? 1 through 6. And I type 6, and what I need to do is, all right. So let me actually show you this, all right? So let's say that this is a basic HTML tutorial, right? Tutorial. And this one I say that please sign up here, for example. Now you're going to see a difference between the H1 and H6. So what are these? These are a tag that's used to add a title or subtitle on your web page. So I'm going to save that. And then what I need to do, I need to go to the browser and refresh it. So now you can see that, right? This is the H1 and this is the H6. H6 doesn't have a lot of emphasis, but H1 has a lot of emphasis, and this is the most important. H6 is the least important. All right. So that was about the headline and paragraph. As I told you, is defined with the P. So right now, to summarize this one meaning that this is the HTML5 document. This is the HTML declaration. It happens only once on the top of the HTML. HTML tag is the root element of an HTML page. Everything comes inside this tag. Its beginning of your web page is here and the ending is here. In HTML, what is the tag in HTML? HTML has an opening tag, some content, and closing tag. Only the content is visible on your page. So what is this eight tag? Eight tag is usually contains meta information, data about data. What is this body? Body is a container for all the visible content that you see on your page. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Yeah. So here is the same explanation that I just told you. You know, HTML is the root element. It is for the meta information or metadata. The title is usually used to add a title for your web page that we already covered that. And body is a container for all the visible element. H1 for the headings, most important. H6 is the least important. P1 for the paragraph. All right. If you want to type a paragraph of text. So here again, it introduces you what is a tag. A tag has opening tag, some content, and closing tag. Remember, as I told you already, that tags are not visible on your page. Only the content becomes visible on your page. For example, like this two, right? Only this text in the middle, the content is visible, not anything else. All right. So this is also an example. All right. So let's move on. So this is basically the steps that if you are in Windows or a Mac, how you can use the editor to write HTML and then you run it on your browser. I already show you, right? You open up a text editor, you type in everything, and then you save it by an extension must be HTML, and then you open up with your Google Chrome or another browser, your favorite browser. All right. So this is also something that we already cover. It shows you the steps how you can, run it. So we already covered this. And all right. So this one is also cover. We cover what is the HTML document. Usually start with a declaration, right? This is called declaration that I already covered this. These are cover. So let me move on, see what we got. HTML paragraph, as I told you, is defined with the P tag. It has an opening tag, closing tag. So the new thing right now, we have the links. So what is the link, right? How the links are defined in HTML. So let me actually show you. I think it's better to show you. That's easier. Okay. So right now, after this, if I want to add a link, right? If I want to add a link on my page, how can I add the link, right? So in that case, what they need to do is here. This is important. Pay attention. So let's say that we want to add this website, right? HTTPS : and then we're going to have codeforlife.usa. So now this one has a meaning. So as I told you, the links in HTML are defined with the A tag. This is the tag, right? A tag. This one is new that we didn't study in the past. So this is basically attribute. What it means, hypertext reference. This is mean that you need to add the address of the website. According to based on HTML terminology, this is referred to as an attribute, and this is referred to as a value of the attribute. And this is inside the double quotation. Also, please remember that the attribute usually defined inside the opening tag. As you see, there are two tags, right? Closing tag and opening tag. So if you notice that attribute usually comes inside the opening tag. You see that this is the opening tag and it comes beside the opening tag. Now you can have another attribute as well. You don't have to like only one attribute. Let's say that I want to have another attribute, and this attribute is what? This attribute is alt. So what does this alt mean? Oh, I'm sorry. So let's actually, before we do that, let's now we need to add some text, right? So that the user understand where should the user click. So we can say, please click here to open up the link for quote for live website, right? All right, so let's actually save this, and let's run it. So we are gonna, okay, here you go, right? If I click over here, it's gonna go direct to that website. All right, so I go back, and as I told you that you can also add some other tag as well, right? So this is only one, attribute. This is only one attribute. And you can also add another attribute. So here we can have another attribute. Let's say that I can have another attribute called target. So target, and I'm gonna add blank. Blank target means that open, whenever someone clicks on this, open this on a new tab. So let me actually show you. When I show you, you will understand better, okay? So let's say that when I click on this, now a new tab opens. Pay attention, okay? So when I click on it, oops, we made a mistake. So let me, all right, I think I didn't save it. Oops, let me actually see what's going on over here. So this is correct, right? Blank, target blank. Let me actually save it again. So it asked me to purchase because I'm using the trial version. And now let's go back, refresh that, and click on this. See that now it opens on a new tab, right? It opens on a new tab. All right. So after this, what we need to know after the image, after the website, the link, now we need to understand the IMG. IMG, as the name implies, is used to add image on your web page. And as you see, there is only opening tag. It doesn't have a closing tag. Okay, it doesn't have a closing tag. All right, so now we want to add an image on our website. So now I'm going to find an image on my website. So what I need to do, I'm looking for an image. So let's see if we can find an image, right? So there is an image. And if you're in Windows, hold Shift key and right click. Here is an option, say copy as path, right? But if you're in Mac, you go to the get info, and then right here, you can copy this as a path, copy as path. So what we need to do now, we need to go back to our text editor and copy this, okay? Copy this. But our image name is still not here. You can say img.jpg. That was the name of the, our image. Okay, all right, sounds good. All right. So now what we need to do, we can also add another attribute. As I say, you can add multiple attributes. I'm gonna add this attribute, and this is alternative. For example, in case image not found, you can say sorry not found. Okay, sorry not found. Let's actually save this and let's run it again. All right, so now we added the image, but the image is pretty big, right? It covers all my, so what about if I want to like make this image smaller? So how can I do that, right? So if I want to make this image smaller, as I told you, you can add multiple attribute. I'm going to use width, and I'm going to set that as a 100, and then I'm going to add height. I'm going to set that as 100. Save. Then I go back to the website, and now save, right? This is now 100 by 100. All right. This is how you can add image. All right. So now let's move on and see what we got on the slide. This was about the links and images. We already covered that. How this is how you add an image. Move on. So again, here's a definition of what is HTML. HTML element as a start tag, some content, opening tag, only the content is visible. For example, here we got two HTML tag, right? Two HTML tag, only this visible, only this two is visible. H1, these tags, P1, these are all, P2, P1, these P, the tags are not visible. Only the content is visible on the website. All right, so let's move on. Nested HTML element when one element is inside another element. Okay, this is pretty simple. So if I show you our example, let's say that we got this is the root element, right? That is contain all other elements. Now inside this HTML element, we got it, we got body, we got h1. These are called nested. When one HTML element is inside another element, it's referred to as a nested HTML element. This is pretty easy, very, very simple. All right, so this one I actually explained, then you can review later on. And now we are going to again, it explained the same example. Okay, so this is kind of important. This is some HTMLs are empty, right? They are called empty HTML elements. So empty HTML elements, as the name implies, they are empty. For example, like BR tag. BR tag means break. It adds a new line and it doesn't do anything else. You don't see that on the page. It just add a new line. So let me actually show you that how it works. So if you go to right here and let's say that if this one, we want this one not to be on the same line, right? Right now, click here to open up the link for it's on the same line. So let me actually see that, okay? So if you can see, this is on the same line, or this one is actually on the same line. So right now, I wanted this one to be on the next line. So what we need to do here, this is pretty simple. What you need to do here, you can have the tag, right? BR, that's it. This one actually, BR breaks, adds a new line. So save it, save that. And then what's going on over here? Let's actually go back to, all right, so where is my, what happened to my page? All right, so I think I lost it. What's going on with this? HTML. All right. So let me actually open this fast. Okay. So let me actually, if you see now, it is on the 2 page, right? We just broke a line over here. All right. So let's move on from this. And then what else we got on the page? HTML attribute. I already told you what's attribute. Attribute provides more information about your HTML element. So let me actually show you. So this is, as I told you, that the HTML element is defined by a tag, right? So it has, this is attribute. href is attribute. It provides more information about this tag. For example, let's say that, okay, href is hypertext reference. Here you define, you put the address of your website. For example, when you click here, it goes, it sends you over here, right? But this one is attribute, and this is a value of the attribute. Usually this one comes in a value, in a key value pair. You can have multiple attribute with one tag, right? With one tag. So this one provides more information about what is this element about, right? So through this one, for example, through this href, we can say, oh, this is a website. Hyperlink reference, this is a website. For example, this one source, we can tell, oh, this tag is image, because this one is asking for source. Where is your picture? So the ID attribute is basically used to define a unique ID for an HTML element. Why do we define a unique ID for an HTML element? Because later on, if you need to access that, we can use that. All right. So attribute in simple term is used to provide information about the HTML element. It must come in the first tag, and it's defined in the first tag, and it comes in the key value pair. All right, so let's move on. So now, as I told you, that HTML headings or title or subtitles are defined with H1 through H6. H1 is the most important, and H6 is the least important. All right, so if we let me actually run this a little quick, because I just want to show you that what is this about. All right, so if we go to our HTML page. I don't know why I keep losing this. Okay, my bad. I actually needed to do that. All right, so what I need to do, I need to open up with a subline, my bad. Okay, so it opened up on my other window. Let me actually drag it because it opens up in this other one. All right, so let's say that here, right? I just want to show you that how this works. If I paste that, right? Well, this one is actually not organized, so we can, I believe that we can type this in because when I copy, it's not organized. But the point is that the H1, we can demonstrate it over here, right? So we already have H1 and I say H2. Then in that case, I can say hello, right? Then in the same, we can say that H3, and again, hello. We got H4, right? H4, again, we're gonna say hello, and H5, right? H5, okay, H5. All right, and here we're gonna type also as well yellow. Sorry, hello. So now that we go to the website, we can tell the difference, right? So you see that this is the most important, least important, least important, and goes all the way. So that's H1 is the most important, H6 is the least important. All right, so now what we need to do is, let me actually open this up and so we are Sublime and go to the website. So we see what we got on the slide. All right. So as I said, ID attribute is used to define a unique ID for an element. Why we are adding a unique element so that later on we can refer back to and find this element, right? So the HTML ID attribute is used to define a unique ID for an HTML element so that later on we can refer back to it. Okay. All right. So now we come to the table. Now, how can we define a table, right? How can we define a table for our web page? All right, so now if we go back to our, so let's say that below this, I want to add a table, right? So this is a table, and as you can see that this is defined with a table tag, right? It has opening tag and closing tag. So the first thing that you need to do is table heading, right? You had the title for this table. For example, I can say that first name, this is the, right? This is the title. And then I can say, for example, what I can say, last name, right? Or I could actually, you know what? Let's actually do this. Yeah, let's actually put this as a, and then we are gonna put this as a, and then we are gonna put as, let's actually put this nationality, right? Nationality. All right, so this was, oh, before actually I do that, I forget one thing, that we need a row for this, right? We need a row. So I'm gonna close this, and this is one row. This comes inside the first row. So what I need to do is inside the first row. So this was the first row, and this is the table heading, right? Now we are gonna have another, row, right? We are gonna have another row, but this time we're gonna have table data, right? It's called table data. So what we need to do is table data, and inside the data, for example, we're gonna type John, right? Let's say John. So what is John last name? Then John last name is, for example, Doe. Doe is last name. And then we got what's nationality? We can say American, right? So in the same case, this was one row. We can have another row. And what we need to do is now we need to have the data, right? For example, for this one, also we can say this is table data is about the cells, right? You have the cells for your table. All right, so here we can add, for example, math, right? The name. Then what we need to do is, for example, let's say Nazari, and then we can say what is nationality. For example, I can say Spanish, right? Spanish, and that's it. So now we actually had 3 row, right? 3 row, 1 row, right? 2 row, this is a row, and we have 3 row. And then 1 row is for the title, the 2 row is for the data. So let's actually save this and go back to our browsers and refresh it. You see that this is our table. This is how you have the table. So why we are having table? Because tables are beautiful, displays the data in a beautiful way. It displays the data in beautiful ways. It shows the data in forms of the rows and column, right? It shows the data in form of rows and column. All right, so this was about the data. And what else we got? So this is also another example that you can also work the same thing that I just worked. So after this, we got the list, right? We got the list. So on a web page, you can also add lists. Typically, there are 2 types of lists. We got the unordered list and order list, right? So unordered list, as the name implies, the list is not in order. For example, let's actually add an order list. What we need to do, where is my text editor? Sublime, right? So, okay. So right now I'm gonna, after my table, I'm gonna add a what? An order list. This is a list, and this is not order, right? So then you need to add for the data, you need to add the, for example, I can say T, as was an example, and then we got the, for example, what? Coffee, then another one, for example, we can say milk, and then we are gonna have another one, and we are gonna have this, for example, let's say sugar, right? Sugar. All right, so this is an order list, and now we are gonna add what? Order list. Order list is with the OL, order list. Okay, so now beside the order list, again, for the list, we are going to use the LI, right? LI, for example, fruit, we are going to use banana, and then what we're going to use here, for example, we can say mango. Then what you need to do is, for example, you can say what else? Apple. And let's actually have one more, and this one, for example, we can say orange, right? Orange. All right, so let's save this. After you save it, go to your browsers and display. All right, so this one, as you see, this is an order list. This has the list. It makes everything on the list. All right, so this was about the list. Let's actually see what we got on the. Okay, this was also an example of the an order list and also the order list. And the frame is, I'm not going to cover the frame. Frame is usually used to create a separate, is used to embed an HTML element, inside it. It's basically an HTML element inside another element. But the content that iframe or this HTML document displays is usually from external sources. For example, in case of the advertisement, right? The advertisement on the web page comes from another servers, from external servers. But you just need to be familiar with that when it comes to the automation. Later on, you're going to teach that in Selenium. All right, so HTML forms. Now here comes to the forms. Okay, so what is forms and why do we use it? Forms are very useful in web pages, and they are used to collect, organize and collect information from the user and send it to the server for processing, right? And send it to the server for processing. All right, so let me actually do this. All right, so what we need to do over here, I need to, where is my, so let me actually see that. All right, this was the one, or no, this was not. All right, so now what we need to do here, we need to add a form, right? We need to add a form. So as I told you that the forms are really useful, and it used to collect the data from the users and send it to the server for processing, right? Send it to the server. So how you can define forms in HTML? You define a form by using the form tag, right? So this is the form tag, and now inside the form, you can, for example, define whatever you wish to do that, right? For example, the first thing that we want to do, let's say that we want to add a label. Label, as the name implies, it adds a label. For example, let me actually show you. So this is a label, right? Then inside the label, what we need to do is we got an HTML element called input. So input meaning that it gets something from the user, right? It gets something from the user. For example, here I can say that it is what? What is this input element? What I'm gonna get from the user? I can say that, okay, I'm gonna get from the user text. I'm gonna get text, right? I'm gonna get text. Then I can actually put this first name. I can name this. Also, I can add one ID so that later on I can identify this, right? Later on I can identify this. Then that's it for now, okay? So, right, okay, let actually save that. So after you save it, let's go to the browsers and display that. So we can see that we have the first name and we got this is the input, and I select that as a text, right? But this right now, let me show you another trick that you can do that makes this really useful. What you need to do here, you can say that, okay, so as I told you, you can have um, multiple attributes in one tag, right? So the other tag that we can put is it's called placeholder. So what's a placeholder? I'm going to show you, right? Enter first name. Okay, so let's actually save that and save this. Go back to the browsers, and you see that? So the text that comes inside this enter first name, that's called placeholder. This is really useful so that someone knows that what I'm supposed to, if they, in case they don't see this, they can type in their name, right? And now what we need to do is, for example, we can let me show you what we need actually another label, right? Okay, so let's actually have another label over here. And what we need to do is we need to add a label, and then we're gonna call this last name, right? So let me actually show I cannot accept that this is a misspelled. So this one is also, I don't like misspelling. All right, so, okay. So this is last name, this is the label. And now again, for the last name, I need to define the input tag. Again, I'm gonna say this is a text. And what I'm gonna put the name over here, I'm gonna say that this is the last name. And as I told you, I'm gonna add another ID so that later on I can refer back to this. Oops. All right, last name. And then what I need to do is I'm gonna hack the placeholder, and I say that enter last name. Okay, so let me actually refresh that and go back to the browsers. Okay, right now, so we have the first name and we have the last name. All right, so let's say that now I want this to be below this, right? I want this to be below this, not on the same level. What can I do? I think you already know that we already studied this. So what we need to do, we need to, after this, after the text box, we need to add what? We need to add BR, right? So we need to add a BR. Now save it. When you save it, go back to the browsers. You're going back to the browser and see that right now they are on the different line, right? They are on the different line. So this was about the, the text. But as you know, on the forums, there are a lot of other stuff. For example, there is a radio button, there is a checkbox, and there is, like, varieties of other fields. So how we can add some other stuff as well. So this was about the, the names. And now what we need to do, let's say that I want to add another section for what? For radio button, right? And for this one, I'm gonna make the, for what? I'm gonna add this as the languages. For example, I'm gonna add HTML, right? This is the label. And then what I need to, again, I need to define the input tag. So input tag, what is this? Then I can say this is a radio, meaning that this is a radio button, right? So this one is a radio. And then I can say that, and then I'm gonna have ID, right? I'm gonna have ID, and I'm gonna have this again, radio, right? Then I had this as a radio, and that's it. So right now, let's actually also use a break line over here. Why do we do that? Because we want to have a separate line. All right. So let's save this and run it again. All right. So now we have HTML here. But again, as I said, I don't want to be on the same line. I want to be that on the different line. So what I can do over here, right here, I can add another break so that it adds to the other page. All right, so let's run this. Okay, right now we have the HTML right here, right? The ready button. All right, so let's, in the same way, add some other, this was only one. Let's actually create one more, right? Or two more or one more. All right, so this one is called CSS. This was the label, right? And then again, we need to add the input type. Again, I said this is also a ready button because that name is already taken. We're not going to use the same name. So let's say ready one, and ID also, for the IDs also, I'm going to use ready one, right? So that's it. I'm going to add another break line, the same. All right, let's actually add one more here, okay? Let's add one more. I can say label, right? And this one, JavaScript. What I need to do is input. And again, I'm going to use radio. The name, that's going to be the same name. So I'm going to use radio 2. And I'm going to add an ID, right? I'm going to add ID. And for the ID, I'm going to again use the radio 2. All right. So let's actually use another break right here. And I'm going to save it and I'm going to run it and see what happens. All right. So right now we got three, right? Three ready button. So there are some functions that you can make this only to be clear. Ready button usually you have one option, right? But we don't jump into that right now. But the purpose of this tutorial is that you get familiar with the tags and HTML elements, not to develop something. All right. So let's move on to the next one while we have else. So the next one also, let's say I'm gonna add, so this is the text field that we just had it, ready button, we had it. Let's actually add the checkbox, okay, the checkbox. So how we can add the checkbox to the same, all right. So first of all, I need to add a label, right? I need to have a text so that someone understand what is this about. So let me actually, before that, I'm gonna add here what I need to do. As I told you that you can use these headings to define headlines, title or subtitle, right? Title or subtitle for here. All right, so I here can say that please. I can say select all language that you are able to speak, right? So let's say I had this, and then I'm gonna add a label, right? So here at the label, I'm gonna add first one. First one, I'm gonna add this as, or let's actually have first select the language, right? So let's first select the input. We can also do that. We can select the input, and here we need to type checkbox, right? Because the type is checkbox, okay? So this one is a checkbox, and also I'm gonna add an ID, because if later on I need to refer back to this. So after we added this, then we can have a label, right? So let's say I actually have a label here, and I'm gonna call this Russian, right? So let's actually run this before we make more mistake. All right, so let's see. Yeah, we got Russian right here, right? So we got Russian, and that's the text box. And let's add one or two more. All right, so let's add one again, input. Again, it is a checkbox, right? So the name is, I'm not gonna pick the same name because it's already taken. I'm gonna just add an ID as well. And I'm gonna select that. Now I need to add a label. Then in that case, I can say that label, and I'm gonna call this, for example, Spanish, right? And let's actually add one more. And again, checkbox, name, checkbox, oops, what was that? So I'm not gonna checkbox 2, ID, checkbox 2, okay. All right, so I just need to add one more label. Label, I'm gonna call this, let's call it English. All right, so let's save this and put your browser and play it again. All right, oops, there is something wrong, so we need to figure out what's going on over. All right, so let's see what's up, what's going on over here. What did okay, this is supposed to be checkbox, right? But the check one is not going to accept that because it doesn't recognize this. I just want to tell you that these values are predefined, this attribute value, right? So it's supposed to be, they already defined in the HTML, for example, like radio, checkbox, you know, like text. So these are the predefined word. If the word doesn't match, then in that case, it's gonna open up some random thing like this one, a text box. All right, so now we got the Russian, Spanish, and English. All right. Okay, I think that concludes this tutorial for the HTML. All right, and as I told you at the beginning that the CSS is used to style, right? Is used to style your HTML element, right? So I'm just gonna touch base just a little bit of what I mean when I say HTML is used to style or for formatting. What I mean by that is so let me actually show you, okay, a little bit of CSS. So as I told you, that attribute usually comes in the first opening tag, right? It comes in the first opening tag. So this keyword is actually style. This is a CSS. This is another language that's used for formatting and styling. So I say that a style. So this is pretty easy. Then I say, you see that background color. So background color, then I'm gonna select it as a pink, right? So now this element, which is the list, the color is gonna be what? Pink. And the same way, this one, let's say that again, I'm gonna say a style, and then I'm gonna call background color, and then this one I'm gonna call blue. So this one, the color is gonna be blue. Let's actually save that and let's run it again. Okay, you see that this one is pink and this one is blue. So that's what I'm talking about when I tell you that the CSS is used for styling, coloring, color coding the elements, and HTML is for the content, right? So now we style this too. All right, so let's actually try something, some more stuff. Let's say that let's see what we can do. We can let's say that you want to, when it comes to this form, right? When it comes to this form, and let's say that this one, right? For example, this input, what you want to do over here at, for example, you can say a style, and after you have the style, you can say color, right? Color, and then for this one, what type of color? You can say light blue, right? You can have the color blue, right? For this input, which is a checkbox. For this input, you can select the color blue, right? So let's actually save this and let's run it again. Okay. All right, so it seems that for the text box is not working. So let's say that we want to add element right here, right? Yeah, so I'm sorry, this was supposed to be for the label, right? We cannot add that for where is that? So let's actually copy that, cat it, right? We can use that for the label. Let's say for this label, we can use that, paste it, save this, and go back to our browsers. And right now we can see that the Russian is blue. So that's what I mean when I say CSS. So in summary, the front end and the web pages are usually written by HTML, which is for the content management to add the content, and CSS for styling, formatting, color coding, and then we have JavaScript for dynamic behaviors and adding functionality. All right, that's it about this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Bye.